welcome to our Healing Voices episode 21. My name's Aaron Lehman. I'm the host and really excited to have you join in today, whether you're joining on podcast or on YouTube. Really excited for my conversation with Monroe Howard today and just looking forward to diving in with you. Those of you who are brand new to the podcast and the YouTube channel, just for a little bit of insight on what this is all about and what the hope is. For me, being engaged in the healing journey over this last, most intentionally over the last 15-ish years, since getting into massage school and reading a bunch of books post-college where I was like, oh, wow, this is amazing. What, the wisdom that's out there in the body, mind, spirit realm. I just was like, man, I'm reading these books. Who do I talk to? Who wants to dive into this stuff with me? Like, I want to talk about this stuff. I want to hear what other people are, experiencing and learning. And so sometimes on our human journey, it can feel lonely. And especially sometimes in engaging in this healing process, which I think is a lifelong thing. I don't think I'm going to turn 40 in August and all of a sudden like, whoop, everything's good. I think it's a lifelong process that we're all engaging in. And for me, wanting to know that I'm not the only one and wanting other people to know that they're not the only ones doing the work, having the conversations, the difficult conversations, sitting with a therapist, sitting in the meditation, going on walks to ground out. Anyway, we all have unique paths. And I just yearn to know that I want us all to know that we're not the only ones doing the work and doing the healing and being courageous daily. So if you've just begun your healing adventure intentionally, know that you're not alone. Monroe and I are walking the walk and walking the path with you and cheering you on that. And then also the voices aspect of this podcast YouTube channel is I just have always been a curious being. It could be being raised by two counselors. My parents were both counselors. And so they were always curious about others. And I think I probably saw that modeled. That probably is a part of my curiosity. I also had some early experiences, which then, as a kid, that then I started seeing a therapist in like my teen years with some bullying experiences. And so I started to kind of like, just really learn how important our voices are. And how, what we're going through, sometimes talking through it, sharing it verbally with others. In fact, like for me, as I'm saying, I remember like at 19, releasing like a childhood secret, that I had since 4 or 5. It was a family known secret, but I finally released it at 19 and I was like, holy shnikes. I'm like, I feel so much more freedom now that I have not felt. I did not feel in high school, And so just voicing that secret created such healing for me. So I'm just curious to know what other people have walked through, what other people are going through. And really excited for us all to realize that our voices are huge. I think sometimes we've all been most of us have been raised, if we've been raised in the United States, we've been raised with this like eye on the celebrities, eye on the sports figures, eye on the big timers, and it's like sometimes I'm looking to them or looking to that person thinking that they've got the answers, right? And it's like, I think we all have the answers, like, and we can, if we're willing to explore and dive in with each other. I think my voice, I think Monroe's voice, I think your voice, those of you who are listening, your voice is as critical and as important as we're moving forward and being a part of like shifting and changing the consciousness and healing ourselves and each other. So, all right, a little long intro, but Monroe, really excited to have you here. Monroe is a life coach, media personality, motivational speaker, host of the Naked Truth Experience, and a pre-licensed therapist. And I came to know you through Instagram. just here in this last year, and was like captivated by your joy, captivated by your deep reflections. Especially here, I've been listening to some of the truth experience, the naked truth experience lately, and just being like, oh my gosh. I mean, if there is somebody doing the work and engaged in just the whole process, evolutionary process, like, it's you. And I'm just curious to know more about who you are and why you shine, like why you shine so bright. I mean, that's the, my curiosity is probably starts there. Like, I just feel your warmth and your shine. So thanks for being here. Thanks for taking time out of your evening to be with me and to be with the community, the Growing Our Healing Voices community. Would you share a little bit, man, and just kind of drop us in a little bit on you and what's your life journey been like up till now? Are there like 2 or 3 game changers, awakening moments, or it could be a period of time in your life? Are there any as you've been on your journey?
Listen, first of all, man, I want to, I'm always at what you may be experiencing in my expressions is sometimes I'm still super amazed at how, when you just open yourself up and you put yourself out there, and you allow yourself to be vulnerable, this is what happens, right? Connection, right? And connection in sometimes unconventional ways, and unconventional connections with people who, maybe under other circumstances, you may not have had an opportunity to sit down and talk in this capacity in which we are today. So what I'm feeling, and then even just, as you're speaking and being here in this moment, being very present in this moment, is just a lot of gratitude, because I do recognize that a decision that I made on January 6th, and I'll go into that in a minute, led me all the way to this moment here, right? And so I am always forever very conscious of how precious the moments are when we make certain decisions to lean in, when we make certain decisions to allow ourselves to become vulnerable, when we make certain decisions to allow ourselves to push through the fear and do it anyway. Because this is what happens, right? Connection happens. So first, man, just want to thank you for allowing me to be here today with you. And I'm so looking forward to this conversation. And I appreciate your warmth, or welcome me in the way that you have. So listen, I think, when you're asking me about maybe some pivotal things that have happened in my life, 2 things that stand out. One is the death of my mother when I was 21 years old. She had died from cancer, when she was 49, unfortunately. And then the other one that stands out is January 31st, 2018, when in my home right here, I live on the East Coast in New Jersey, right outside New York City. I had breakdown, suicidal, thoughts and ideation, and I had to lean in on some people, some men in particular, as a matter of fact, to come and help me. And one man in particular was able to take me to the hospital because I needed to be evaluated, and I was given a diagnosis at that point, major depressive disorder. But with that, it really did compel me to get serious about my own healing journey. So I would say those 2 events, extremely impactful, so much so that, 19 years later from the death of my mother, 3 years later from the point in which I had my breakdown here in my home, very, very vivid images of that experience, gets a visceral reaction going on in me. But most importantly, I can see how I've grown since those points. And I will say, the death of my mother, she was a beautiful woman who left a wonderful legacy, one of those being gratitude. So every time I stand in gratitude, I feel like I honor her existence and her presence, as she was really someone who embodied that at almost every single juncture in her life, even all the way up until her last few breaths, right? Wow. She embodied gratitude. And it is something that has left an indelible mark and impression on me, right? And then when we think about getting to your lowest point, getting to the point in which you say, it would be better if I wasn't here.
Mm-hmm.
And then being able to now look back and say, wow, I love myself in a way that I've never loved myself before. I accept myself in a way that I've never accepted myself before. I see myself in a way that I've never seen myself before. Is all of the devastation that has come from those two moments,
Mm-hmm.
those two marks in my life. I am so grateful to God. I'm so grateful to the universe that I was able to experience them. And I know that may sound kind of morbid or weird when you think about the loss of someone so significant. Obviously, I miss her presence every single day. But
Mm-hmm.
the fact is that I also understand that, right? People pass on, right, in this physical body. But the fact that I get a chance to have her spirit live on within me and experience it helps me to understand how pivotal those moments were and how necessary those moments have been for me to get right here to this point.
Mm-hmm.
So, not trying to be too long-winded in that, but I would say those are the 2 points that stick out. And as we continue our conversation, those will be reference points
Mm-hmm.
throughout.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm curious, as you share about your mom, would you be open to sharing just like, I mean, you talked about gratitude being a shift, like she just was embodied that so much. When you go back to your younger years and your mom, like yeah, I mean, we all have our unique connections, right? With our parental figures, like any special moments or, memories that you remember about her.
Yeah, man. I mean, there's so many. Again, my mother, single mother. I was her only child. I was raised with a lot of love. I was raised with a lot of care, a lot of community,
Mm-hmm.
and so I'm very grateful for that. But one of the moments that stands out is actually the last week of her life here on Earth, and she was in her hospital bed, and we had, been informed that there was nothing else that the doctors could do, and that it is inevitable of her transition right soon. And I remember her, my family, my grandmother, my aunt, my cousin, and probably some other extended family were in the hospital room. And I remember my mother, who at that time breathing was very labored, and but she spoke in her very soft and as her voice was weakening with her strength, and said, "Hey, can we pray?" My mother was a very spiritual woman, extremely spiritual. And I use that spiritual intentionally and not say religious, because even though she was extremely active in the church, she, for me, transcended the walls and transcended the rituals of religion and really understood what it meant to love unconditionally, understood what it meant to show compassion and empathy, what it meant to reach out to your fellow man or woman in their time of need, right? To see people for really who they are and not what they present or project or what they can do or provide for you. Like those are the things. So spirituality was huge, and she had a wonderful relationship with her God, right?
Mm-hmm.
So she wanted to pray. And at that moment, she says, I want to pray, right? I thought one of us was going to pray or something like that. And again, one of us, probably doing some type of prayer to say, God, please comfort her in her time of need and her pain. Please be with us as we're, watching our loved one, who is going through this, this difficult time. But my mother said, God, I want to thank you for my family. I want to thank you for everyone being here and us being together today. And here's what I will never forget. She says, God, I want to thank you for providing me with a job, which allowed me to have insurance so that I could have this hospital care, right? So that I could be in this hospital with these doctors and nurses who are taking care of me. Now, why that is so significant. Somebody might say, like, what? Like, okay, you thanking God for a job and some insurance. Well, let me tell you why it's so significant to me. Because at the point in which this woman could have entitled to complain, have pity, say, woe is me, this is happening to me, so on and so forth. Instead, she was grateful for the little things. And that was who she is, right now she lived. She would always find situations that were difficult, she would find the gratitude. I know we say, we use the term find the silver lining, but she would find an opportunity. And I love that term, opportunity. She would find an opportunity to express gratitude through all the difficult times. And it was also spoke to me about, you don't have to look for these big miraculous, oh my gosh, this windfall of money, or, this huge event, right, that gets all this fanfare. But the fact is that she looked at something that a lot of people might take for granted and said, God, I want to thank you for this job that allowed me to have insurance, which allowed these people, these professionals, to take care of me so that I could be here today. That's what she understood about the fundamentals of being grateful, right? And as I've gone on in my journey, and as I've developed, and as I've experienced and grown, I've continued to take that into my own authentic nature and expression, and figured out ways in which it best serves me and how I operate in this world. And it is not being, ignorant of, what happens, the realities of life.
Right.
It is not, dismissing the pain or dismissing the disappointment or the hurt that we experience as a result of several things that may happen in our lives. But it's understanding that at the end of the day, right, there is always an opportunity to find some gratitude, and that those things don't have to be mutually exclusive. I can hold my hurt, I can hold my pain, I can hold my disappointment, I can hold my sadness, and I can still be grateful. I can still be grateful. So I would say that, when you ask me about her specifically, that's what comes to mind.
Wow. Yeah. Getting chills over here, hearing you share. Yeah. I feel that. I kind of want to just breathe with the memory of your mom, and yeah, what a gift she is, still sharing today through you. Woo. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Yeah, beautiful. So yeah, that's intense. That's intense and powerful. Woo.
We can sit with it. I'm
Wow.
I'm becoming more and more comfortable
Yeah.
with the moment, and allowing the moment to just be.
Yeah.
You and I were talking about this before the interview started, right? We're usually so quick to, we got to go because we got the next things to do, and not sometimes just taking the moment to let that thing, really kind of settle in, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I think I would love for you to, if you're open to it, go a little, share more on this journey of pain and disappointment and right. And, and then also the opportunity for gratitude, and how do you practice that? Is there any way you're doing that intentionally that's helping you? As listeners, I know we're all probably processing that, whether in thought or in our hearts, like how do you?
Well, there's theory and practice, right? So in theory, we're like, oh yeah, this exists, but I can honestly say that they exist in both for me, right?
Yeah.
And practice is where it counts.
Yep.
Again, being very transparent about my journey, I feel like there's been these pendulum swings, right? And like one extreme to the other. Like I'm just always like looking for the grateful thing, looking for the grateful thing, looking for the grateful thing, and not giving myself an opportunity to be disappointed, not giving myself an opportunity to actually, and I'll back up and say, to recognize, to acknowledge the disappointment, the hurt, and the pain. Because whether I acknowledge it or not, it's there. And that's the thing. It will manifest or show up someplace else, whether I acknowledge it or not. So that was the first thing that I had to learn.
Yeah.
And it really came through like, now, wait a minute, what's your audience like? Because sometimes when I get a little loose, my mouth can just be a little,
Be you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Be you.
I was like, let me just make sure. I don't know if this is a family show. Okay. But I think in really having to deal with some emotions, deal with some demons that were just always coming back, coming up, coming up, coming up. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like, why is this still here? Why does this exist? Or why do I keep sabotaging my situation? And, you know, why do I keep just like messing shit up, right?
Yeah.
Like, that was really the questions that initiated this deep look into, because you're not dealing with the shit that hurts you. You're not dealing with the wounds. You're not acknowledging the pain. You're not healing the hurt. You're not healing the hurt.
Mm.
You're moving right through it for the sake of gratitude. So here's where the pendulum things, because then now I'm saying, well, if I'm seen hurt or vulnerable or, you know, confused or in pain or, heaven forbid, needing help,
Right.
right? That doesn't then present this version of myself, this always, you know, positive and grateful, like all of these things, these characteristics that I had kind of constructed this facade that had to exist all the time, because I felt like if I didn't keep that up, well, then that's tied to, do people really want to be around me? Do people, you know, really think I have something of value to contribute to this world? Like, we can go on and on and on. A lot of these things are interconnected. So I really, really had to deal with some shit and understand that, all right, buddy, you done swung way over here, and you're not even allowing yourself to say, that was fucked up. And I'm mad. I'm hurt by that. Just even saying that before I go to, well, you know, at least it didn't. Well, you know, it could have been, and da 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 da. Okay, so that's where really started to have that balance, and for those things to coexist. Because as I was able to say, this hurts, man. Like, I'm not okay. I'm not okay. I'm not okay.
Yeah.
And I would sit in that, and I wouldn't try to run through that by being busy, by moving on, because again, that was another way that I was trying to show that I was okay. I'm okay. I'm good. I'm good. Hey, what's next? What we got going on next? And I'm not. So sitting in that moment allowed me to really kind of take that in and understand, how is that impacting my mind, body, and spirit. And as I continued my healing journey, then to understand the ways in which I could process that, the ways in which I could hold that, and then yet be able to allow that to move through my spirit and my mind and my body, right? Because there was physical, like anxiety causes physical reactions. And part of that process for allowing me to heal was finding gratitude. So they're still all connected. The gratitude becomes part of the healing process, and it does not trump the actual emotion or the feeling. It's just part of the solution. That's all. That's it.
Yeah.
And that's where I had to say they can coexist. I can be hurt, but I can heal.
Yeah.
And if I can heal, for me, that means I am sitting somewhere in gratitude.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, because I feel like that's right. I'm thinking of, as you're sharing, joy, joy, joy. Be this, like, right. I got the message growing up, you know, whether through family, church, etc. But like, bring the joy. You know, it was like, you may be the only Jesus people ever see. You've got to be on, you know, just be up and up, right? Ready to serve, ready to love. Holy crap. When do I take care of me? When do I address, like, what happened at 4? When do I address the teenage years when I was all sorts of messed up because of what happened at 4? And then I was, no, you know what I mean? It's like acknowledging, yeah, showing up for that hurt, showing up for that. I hear you saying that, like, as you dove in and allowed yourself to feel those feelings and hold them and ask for help, even, right, as you walked through those, then came, then the gratitude flowed in at a
Yeah.
deeper level, right? At a whole, like almost at
a deeper level. It wasn't, superficial. It wasn't, something that was contrived. Because again, I would find myself, you almost kind of get into this performance mode of I'm on, right? So I have to show the face of gratitude. I have to show the face of strength. And, we talk about men in particular really being socialized and raised in a lot of ways for us to not show weakness.
Right.
And I totally come against that. But, the thing about it is that I don't see vulnerability as weakness. I don't see asking for help as weakness. I don't see showing your emotions or sharing your emotions with others as weakness. I see it as strength. But these were just the things that I had to learn again. And I go all the way back to stuff showing up over and over again. And Aaron, I just simply got tired of reliving the same experiences. And I was like, okay, so when are you going to do something different? When are you going to do something different?
Mm-hmm.
And at that moment, making a conscious decision to do something different is what has begun to yield different experiences, different outcomes, right? And that is something that I can, going back to when you asked me what are some 2 events in my life that stick out, I think the thing that brings me the most joy and fulfillment is when I can see from those points how much I've grown.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And from where I was, and going back to my mom's example, it doesn't have to be, I lost 150 pounds, right? And that's somebody's journey. That's somebody's triumph. But in the small moment, when I make a different decision because I have a different value judgment of myself, I look at myself differently. So now I don't maybe make a compulsive decision to purchase this thing because I thought that this thing was going to somehow enhance my worth or my value. But now because I have a different outlook on who I am, I don't have to be compulsive in my purchase. That small thing that somebody is like, what? And that happens in a moment like that, I find gratitude. I'm grateful. That's a marker of like, Monroe, you're doing different. Because those little things in my life add up to the big things.
Yeah.
They add up to the big things.
Yeah.
So it gets very granular for me when I think about the gratitude and where I can go with it. And it doesn't have to be this huge display. Most times it's very personal. It's in my head. It may not even be audible, but it's happening. And I'm recognizing it, and it brings me joy. It brings me fulfillment. It encourages me then to be able to move on and to continue on this path. When we talk about this journey of healing, it is an ever evolving. The church I go to here in Harlem, part of our statement of purpose is say, we're an ever evolving community of believers, right?
Yeah.
So that means that we never stop learning. We never stop evolving. We never stop striving to really experience our most authentic expression and our highest self, right? A lot of people, I use this just because I know a lot of people may use in these terms. I don't haven't necessarily dove into it, but some people may say, vibrating, higher vibration, different things like that. But again, it is something that for me is rooted in very tangible experiences. Very tangible experiences that let me know, all right, you're on the right path. Keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah. As you're sharing that, I'm, and you we're talking about it keeps showing up, right? It just keeps showing up, and you're like, well, why does this thing keep showing up? Why does the same thing keep happening? I love how what are the little, right? The little detail. Why does that keep showing up? And it sounds like you've done it's almost like it's like you're investigating yourself and like what's manifesting and being like, okay, that little habit may seem small, but if I keep that habit rocking, it's like, where does that take me?
The word I love to use is interrogation. I interrogate almost everything.
Yeah.
Like, not, and it's not to be confused with overthinking things,
Okay.
right? Or
Right.
analyzing things. But there is an interrogation that happens with my actions, my thoughts, and my deeds.
Yeah.
In my life coaching practice, I take people through basic 3-step process. And that first one is self-confrontation.
Mm-hmm.
All my clients, I don't care what it is, if you're trying to do weight loss, if you're trying to build a communication, better communication with a partner or a family member, whatever, I don't care what it is.
Yeah.
We always start with self-confrontation. Let's own our shit. Like, let's own it. Where is this coming from for you? What is, when you, and this is not a blame game, this is not to make you feel worse about yourself, but one of the things that I find is that we carry a lot of shame for our actions and our deeds and our thoughts because we can't own them. We can't own it. We don't want to own the fact that we said it. We don't want to own the fact that we did that.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to define who we are. And especially if we're in a place to say, I want to see change in my life, I don't want to keep showing up in a certain way. You've already proven to yourself, not to everybody else, but to yourself, that you are committed to your growth, right? This is the first step.
Mm-hmm.
So there's the self-confrontation. So that interrogation is key for me.
Yeah.
I'm constantly confronting myself to be like, why you do that? And I talk crazy to myself. I really do.
Yeah.
I'll be like, why? That's when I do get audible and people might think I'm a little, whatever. But I have conversations with myself, man. And I'm like, yo, what was that? Why you do that? Like, didn't we already deal with this? Or, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Or if it gets, something new pops up. The conversation might be a little different. Like, oh, that's new.
Mm-hmm.
Never felt that before.
Mm-hmm.
The interrogation, like, where were you? What time was it? What were the conditions that were happening when this thing popped up?
Mm-hmm. You're right.
Right. Let's start to isolate it. In a lot of the work that I did with, I've done things where I've trained teachers on how to work with students who are having challenging behaviors in their classrooms. And one of the things is the ABCs of behavior, management. And that A is the antecedent, right?
Mm-hmm.
That antecedent is what happened prior to the actual behavior that was observed, right?
Yeah.
So if we see the child acting out, what's the antecedent? That's the investigation. That's the interrogation, to understand what is happening in my life, what's happening in my environment, what's happening in my soul, in my spirit, in my mind, because we are human beings that are constantly bombarded with stimuli. So we do not exist in a bubble, and the things that are coming out, they're coming from somewhere. Yeah. So where is that? What is that for you? And sometimes it's not some external stimuli. It can be that internal stuff that you mentioned and that I've experienced when we talk about going back to a past experience in childhood that we've never talked about.
Yeah.
We're still holding a lot of shame, a secret, right?
Mm-hmm.
Painful memories, all this other kind of stuff we've not healed from. We've not maybe been able to forgive the person who may have, brought upon pain or hurt or neglect for us. Maybe we haven't forgiven ourselves for something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That can be an antecedent. So it's definitely self-confrontation and that interrogation that is key for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that's amazing. So say more on the life coaching, that first one, like the first where you start people. Well, I'm just thinking about listeners who are listening and are like, yeah, like, okay, online, right? There's like, you see these influencers, right? These influencers out there, and oftentimes it feels like it's all just showing their best. We're all just showing our best, and occasionally dropping in some vulnerability, but like, we're all working through this both and reality, right? Where it's like a disappointment pops up and it's like that, I might hear my wife share like a disappointment. I'm like, is that really like, but that's a real, she's having that emotion, like, oh, and maybe it's about what just happened, and it might be about what happened 12 years ago or 22 years ago, but she's having that emotion. So how can I show up for that? I'm just thinking about people who are processing like, okay, I have these moments that I've had, or I'm going through something right now. Our therapist right now keeps saying, like, she's like, this is kind of an intense time. This last 12 months, she's like, kind of intense.
Think?
Yeah, she's like, kind of intense. She's like, so yeah, I don't think you want to cut back your appointments, or whatever. It's like, so just this whole journey that we're all on, trying to be like authentic with the gratitude, and also authentic and vulnerable in safe spaces, right? Where it's where we feel held and supported. Yeah, I just think as like for somebody who's just getting into this healing arts world, and just like any and addressing like the first, maybe just us having our little dialogue, they're like, oh crap, like I went through such and such and this, and different memories are popping up, perhaps. I mean, that often can happen. Yeah, what would I love that first, self-confrontation being kind of, if you were to work with somebody,
Yeah.
what might you offer, just like somebody who's like brand new to kind of the body, mind, spirit, wellness, healing world?
I think the first thing that I would tell anybody, and the first thing that I tell my clients, is that yes, I have a program. Yes, I have a structure. Yes, I have an idea of where kind of, we would want to move according to the number of sessions I'm contracted for, so we can make sure we can hopefully see some gains or some accomplishments.
Mm-hmm.
That all gets trumped by what you need in that moment. And I tell them, this session is yours. I've created a structure, but this session is going to be responsive to your needs. So what I would say to someone who is just like, oh my gosh, especially because you are bombarded with, here's how you heal, here's how you get through, here's what you do step 1, step 2, step 3, whatever the case may be. I did yoga, I did meditation, I did, this diet, I did therapy, I did walk therapy. I mean, we
Yeah.
can go on and on. And you alluded to this in your opening, and we're just talking about like, there are multiple paths and journeys to healing. And it's not just one silver bullet. It's not just therapy, like go get a therapist, right? That's not for everybody. And that's not just going to be the only thing that is going to be a part of your healing journey. So that's the first thing that I would say to somebody else is be open to what you need. Be open to what is going to be unique to your healing journey. And as much as possible, and I say this because even me, so I know that all of us sometimes can get very much distracted by, looking to the left and the right of like, well, damn, well, they seem to really be kind of moving ahead, and we may be compelled or tempted to emulate or to copy what they're doing. But that may not be exactly what you need for your unique experience, right? Your unique humanity. So that's the first thing that I let people know. Be responsive to you and allow the things that you seek, whether it be meditation, yoga, therapy, something that has to do with body wellness and, physical health and dieting or whatever. I need you to be open and responsive to how your mind, body, and spirit responds to those things.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And do it your way. So that's one.
Yes.
And then two is to kind of really connect it to that, is have a realistic timeline in mind. And when I say that, meaning do not hold yourself hostage to, by next month, I have to do blah, 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 or I have to stop blah, 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 or I have to, because again, that negates the fact that you're human, and that you're vulnerable, and you can be susceptible to things that may impede that forward progress, but it doesn't have to stop you, right? So one of the things in healing, and again goes into comparing yourself a lot of times to other people, is that if we are wedded to this timeline of, by this time I gotta be here, and if this time comes and you're not there, well, now you've got something else to add to your plate to beat yourself up about.
Right.
So if we're proactive in saying, I'm committed to this ever evolving process, this ever evolving journey. And that commitment does not come with this arbitrary timeline, but it is how I will continue to grow, develop, and respond, and how I will be responsive to things that may come up in my life, because I'm developing tools, right? I'm developing strategies, I'm developing mindsets that will allow me to be nimble, that will allow me to respond in different ways. I use the example of, like, you know, it's connected in how I feel about myself and my self-worth and how I'm spending my money.
Mm-hmm.
Those things are closely connected, because if I find myself living paycheck to paycheck, or never having enough, or not being able to be a good steward over the resources that I have, I
Mm-hmm.
need to check, like, what is my emotional, response to when I'm feeling low, when I don't feel so good about myself. What am I prone to try to do, and where does that come from, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there are these things that, like, if we do deal, and this is the encouraging part about, like, throwing away this timeline,
Mm-hmm.
if we are just committed to the work, that one thing that you really start to develop these new strategies and mindsets and narratives for will start to affect so many other things in your life. And before you know it, you will see this, it will go from, like, this incremental to, like, this exponential growth. And you'll look back and you're like, wow, not only
Mm-hmm.
do I feel and see myself for really who I am and accept all of me, but now I also got a savings account,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Right? Now my bills are paid, or my debt is, minimized. Like, there's all of these benefits
Mm-hmm.
that when we just commit ourselves to the process and not the timeline.
Yeah. Mm. So good. So good. You're sharing such goodness. I mean, it's pumping me up to again. I mean, because I'm the guy that's like, all right, 2018, I'm going to read a bunch of books, or I'm going to read a book a month or 2 books a month, and then I'm like, yeah, I read a half a book, like, in that first 6 months, and maybe another half, like, and then I just beat myself up about it. Right. And I know there's a lot of us that have that pattern where it's like, okay, well, I felt bad, so let me just, like, have something else to add on to that, right? So I love that. Just, like, commit to the process,
Yeah.
stress less about the timelines.
Yeah.
I hear you also saying, like, really listen to, as you're healing, like, listen to your body, mind, spirit. So if it's, maybe you start going to a church, maybe maybe you start meditating, maybe you start right, maybe you have a conversation with somebody that you trust. Check in with yourself after those, and it's like, ooh, that shifted it. That was a
Yeah.
nice shift. I think I want to keep it that, and trust then. Okay, yeah. Okay, now I can shift to, right? Because it feels like, it's like, here are these 5 steps, like,
Yeah.
do these 5 things, and not to say those
Yeah.
haven't supported a lot of people, right? I know,
Absolutely.
right?
And I mean, again, it's not to make light of the things that are steeped in, research-based practices, and, things that work, right?
Mhm.
One of the things that I love about, hosting the Naked Truth Experience with Monroe is that I have gotten an opportunity to speak to minds and souls and hearts of some of the most brilliant people out there who are doing this healing work, and who are sharing their expertise and knowledge and insight with the masses, right? And with the intention to just want people to be free. And that's the same mission statement for my practice, my own healing practice, right?
Mhm.
So again, there is value and there's merit in a lot of these things that are out there. But because there are a lot of things that are out there, right, we are not going to be able to do them all. So you have to, at some point, decipher what is for you.
Mhm.
And you hit it on the head, that whole piece of exploration, right? Exploration. Someone sent me the other day this little Instagram clip of this guy. I think I don't know if he's like a contributing editor or writer or whatever, but anyway, Founder magazine or something for like executives and CEOs. But one of the things he was talking about was really getting rid of all of the conventional knowledge that we kind of stand on, because what we've been taught, especially through the pandemic, is that what worked for 2019 no longer works in 2020.
Yeah.
So coming into these places and spaces with a mind of exploration and questions, more questions than declarations, is where the magic begins to happen. And so, as you described, I mean, it was a beautiful summarization to say, like, let me explore and see what feels right, see what resonates. I love to reference, and this is again these people that I get to work with, so I'll reference them because I take pieces from everybody. I'm like, you know what, and merge that with my experience and my insight. But another brother, his name is Didier, and he's a wonderful coach, and I've been part of some of his experiences. But the other day, he posted, you know, this difference between reasoning and resonance, right? This reasoning and the logic that says, oh yeah, this is right because X and Y, you know, it's very cerebral. But then there is this resonance, which I and you and many people would say, you know, okay, well there's something, it just felt right, my gut, right? And a lot of times in this modern age, a lot of people have discounted the gut feeling, right? The gut, like, no, where's the research? Show me the research. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. But you cannot, and again, they don't have to be mutually exclusive. That resonance and that reasoning can exist. They can coexist. And I need both. I want both, you know?
Yeah.
And I think there should be just as much importance placed on the resonance. How does it feel for you? Because I love the resonance and the fact that, like, it is individualized. It's targeting you and your uniqueness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Totally. Totally. Yeah. I mean, reasoning and resonance. Yeah, definitely a trip to sort through the vibe, like paying attention to that gut feeling. I mean, we haven't been taught that, right? I mean, it's not been emphasized. It's almost like it's like this. I feel like it's like this ancient knowledge, right? The ancient awareness that we've maybe, you know, gotten caught up in the industrialized world or whatever, you know?
I was going to say this age of, what do I want to say? Sophistication, right?
Right. Yeah.
Age of sophistication. I think that there is a departure from the things that my ancestors, right? Your ancestors, who did not have all of this technology and sophistication, but who are the ones that laid the foundation for where we are today. So obviously, right, their sophistication has merit and has meaning and has value. And so I think a lot of times we depart from those things that really are foundational. And when we revisit those things and merge that with the new, it's a beautiful thing. And at the end of the day, I don't care what happens, but you cannot go wrong. And this is my evolution in my spirituality. Is really understanding how the essence of everything for me has to be led by spirit, right? Like, spirit is paramount, because spirit for me, and I'm learning this and I'm still like really kind of developing how this feels, but spirit for me is where I vibrate on the highest level, or at the highest frequency, where I am closest to God, when I am very much accessing the spirit, in the essence and the soul of who I am, not just the knowledge or the expertise or the learned aspect of who I am, but the spirit is that authentic self that connects you and I, that you can hear something via my social media presence, but it is spirit that then connects in a way to say, I want to discover more. Right. And that is where now I'm placing more emphasis, not, in any way discounting the importance of continuing to increase my knowledge and awareness,
Mhm.
but to be very intentional about feeding the spirit so
Mm.
that the spirit's voice and that speaks, that guidance has just as much presence as what these degrees
Right.
say,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
If not more.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I mean, just on that note, I was raised in a church that was so faith and works, right? Faith and works, right? It was like faith without works is dead, works without faith is dead. Was and my church that I was raised in was maybe you've heard of like Quakers, Mennonites, Church of the Brethren. They're
Yeah.
very it's like very social justice, world peace,
Yeah.
like be the hands and feet of Jesus, like just be the hands and feet of Jesus. And it was very like I felt works heavy.
Mhm.
And like just here in this last, I think probably in the last 4 years, is my wife and I went through some really tough stuff there for a few years, chose to dive into therapy here in the last 15 months. And I've been getting in touch, like just, and, and starting this podcast. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this faith, like faith, this spirit took such a back seat to the works. And it's like, wait, hold up a second. How does, you're doing these works, but is the spirit there? Right. It's like, and it's like, or am I doing the works to like
Right.
show I'm doing the works? Right. Or, it's like, or am I
That's it,
actually
man.
like, right.
That's it, man.
Yeah. So I think this, as you're sharing, I'm like, oh my gosh, I just was telling my buddy before hopping on here about, I feel like I'm finally realizing what the heck was meant. Like this, like that this is something that was neglected in a lot of ways. It feels to me it was neglected 100%. Like I don't have to think about that. It definitely felt neglected. I was focused on works, save the rainforest, hurry up and like raise money and save the rainforest, like pick up the recyclables, which is great. It's so
Yeah, I
good.
was gonna say it's all it's and this is the thing why it's so hard sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Because you do all of this noble stuff, like this stuff is important
Yeah.
work, and it needs to get done. And for me, it embodies, if people are followers of the Christian faith or, read, the works of Jesus, like, I mean, I think it emulates what Christ did in regards to actually doing things and not just talking about things.
Totally.
But the neglecting of the spirit is just as detrimental as not doing the works, because here's how I've found this to be tied into, again, going back to specifically men and
Yeah.
how we are measured and value in the society. It is usually about what we can produce,
Totally.
right?
Totally.
So how much can you produce? How much can you make? How much can you amass? How much can you, impact change, so on and so forth? And that a lot of times becomes the measure of our worth
Mhm.
versus, so works,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Versus really looking at the content of our character, our soul, our spirit, like who are we as humans when
Mhm.
the works are not there? Because here's the thing that I always think about. Heaven forbid there is something that happens that prevents you from doing the works. What are
Mhm.
you left with? What are you left with?
Right.
And for many of us, we've been so busy doing the work and not tending to that other piece of the spirit and the faith
Mhm.
that there is a depletion, right? We're depleted in that area. So if the work stop, we don't have anything else to stand on. There's no other substance or foundation to lean on, because the works
Mhm.
gets heavy. The works gets overwhelming. It gets tiresome, right? It
Yeah.
becomes a burden at times.
Yeah.
And especially if that well of faith and spirit has not been fed. So
Mhm.
yeah, it is something, and I love it too, because that's where I was saying why my journey has been so important to really define what does spirituality look and feel like for me? How do I experience it? And it has caused me to have to interrogate, there goes the word again,
Yeah.
all of the things that I was told
Yeah.
as a kid.
Yeah.
All of the things that I, was kind of experiencing. And again, the community in which I grew up was loving and caring and supportive and well-meaning, but a lot of people were just regurgitating the things that somebody else told them.
Yeah.
And the works became the ritual.
Right. Right.
So.
Yeah. Yeah. And it feels different, right? It feels different. Like, it's like the days when I went in, I used to teach high school math and communications class, and the days when I went in with my soul alive, right?
Yeah.
Versus the days when I went in like, freaking A, I can't stand teaching math. Why am I teaching math? I love these kids. I hate math, how did I get myself in this? But it's that right when you feel, it feels so different. It feels so different. And as you're sharing about the as a man and just validation, and you talked about like we are, so often it's like, whoa, what are you producing? Like, oh, you're still driving a 2005 Corolla. Oh, that's cool. And you're just like, yeah, I am. I would like to upgrade. Yep. I'm still healing some abundance crap so that then I can move to that next stage because I would like an upgrade, but I'm not there quite yet. Right. So it's just this, kind of an evolving journey, I think. And the spirit piece, I think sometimes, so for me, I don't know, maybe I shared about this on a previous episode, but I avoided cannabis. I avoided marijuana until 5 years ago. Like 5 years ago, I had some in Amsterdam with my wife, and I was like, I'm in Amsterdam for the first time. I'm going to try it, see what this is all about.
It's in a bar. They sell it in the bar. I was 18 when I went to Amsterdam. I was like, the bartender was like, you want to roll one up? I'm like, what? In the bar? I was in 1999.
Right, is this real right now? Is this real? Right? Yeah. And I was like, and I just had this religious anti vibe, and I had so many of my spiritual friends that I respect. They would be like, I think you would really value it. I think it would be special, and I was like, nah. So long story short, over the last 4 or 5 years, and I'm just, so spirit for me, it's been such it during this last 5 years, it allowed Sarah and I to manifest some pretty ugly crap because it pulled out these stuck energies from our childhood. And fortunately, then we, chose to dive into therapy to we knew we had something special, but we knew if we left each other, we were going to go repeat the same shit elsewhere, and it was and we both were willing to heal it. So anyway, and cannabis has been such of this oh my gosh, we're one. What the heck have we we've created these? No, we're not. We're separate. We're separate. We're individuals. We're, and it's just really, I always felt a lot of love for people, but I feel like it's added an even deeper, it's oh my gosh, I feel like I've hung out with you before. I'm not high right now, but I'm as I'm listening to you, I'm we are so connected. And I think that's, for me, it feels like that's been a missing piece, is this disconnect. It's disconnection from spirit. It's disconnection from each other, right?
And the thing is, it's really coming to terms and grips with that's who we are. That's really who we and even in this moment, I'm it's not this. It's not this. It's not what I see from the aesthetic, the outside aesthetic of who you are. And the thing is, we get caught up on admiring all of that. And I think that is how we've placed these value judgments on who's in, who's not, who's worthy, who's not, right?
Right, right.
Because we are so caught up on the exterior and not understanding about the true essence of who we are is that spirit. That's us. Like, that's us. And so when that connects, I'll even go there and really I've been exploring this piece about sexuality.
Yeah.
And my collaboration partner and I, Crystal Tantric Yogi, who is a wonderful, beautiful, amazing human being in this Tantric Yogi healing space and sexuality. And so we just recently collaborated with each other to do our first Sacred Sexuality for Men workshop a few weekends ago, which was a phenomenal success with like 6 men coming together and really getting vulnerable and talking about first time experiences. And but the thing that was really, really, really driven home through what we presented was that the sacredness of your spirit, the sacredness of what our temple, and I'm not trying to get like all super like religious talk, but the temple in which our head, like, that's what's most important. And even when it comes to sexuality and sexual attraction, like, we limit ourselves by who we can be attracted to because we're so caught on this.
Yeah.
Yet there are individuals who have been able to tap into the spiritual connection of it and who are then able to open themselves up to experiences, and they don't have to result in intercourse, but these intimate experiences that allow you to connect with another soul, with another being.
Yeah.
And so for me, that again transcends just sexuality, but it is in all spaces that I'm trying to be like, how does our souls connect? How do I see your soul? How do I see your spirit? How do I get to know that? How do you get to know mine? How am I very intentional about allowing that to go forward?
Yeah.
To be present, right? That's what's important to me now.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, I mean, I saw you sharing about the tantric workshops you guys did, that y'all did together. And it's like, yeah, I attended a workshop, in-person workshop one night, and it's like, we're so focused on the body and the then, where we're getting, and it's like, there's so much other beautiful, right? I mean, as I'm a massage therapist, and I'm a Reiki master, and we are this, like this whole experience that we're having together. Wow. It's so like anyway, it's so like, it's so magical. So I'm cheering you on. I'm so glad y'all did that. And I definitely am going to keep an eye out for the next time. Just because I got to keep healing.
End of April, man. We got our dates.
Oh, you're okay.
The last weekend in April, so we'll have it back out there. Where it's definitely something that her and I feel very strongly about, and we see it developing into something super impactful for and we're so grateful for the 6 men who started out this journey with us, and we're just looking to continue that, providing that space and opportunity for other men to be seen.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
They saw each other that weekend. They really saw each other.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. I mean, that's such huge work. Because when for me, it's okay. World issue, we're on the beach in Spain, right? And I'm like, everybody's half naked or fully naked in some parts of the beach, and I'm like, wow, are they got it figured out over here? What is going on? We've been to some nude beaches, and I'm like, this feels amazing. What the heck are we doing? Like, over sexualizing like our figures, and it's
and it's something. I mean, I love this because this is what we talked about. The conversation can go anywhere.
Yeah.
but I remember 2018,
Yeah.
the at the end of 2018, I had the opportunity to go to Jamaica to hedonism too.
Okay.
First time going to kind of a
Yeah.
resort where there was, nudity, a nude resort and all that. No, I take that back. But in this context, that's
Yeah.
another
Yeah.
issue
Yeah.
we can talk about. But in this context,
Yeah. Yeah.
it was the first time that I went to that. And I remember um, being having a breakthrough. First of all, having a very unexpected spiritual experience because I was in a place where freedom ran rampant. Like
Mhm.
freedom. People felt free enough in their bodies. People felt free enough in their view of self
Mhm.
and sense of self to be in their most natural, most vulnerable state, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it spoke wonders to me to where, quite honestly, where, you kind of thought you would be going for like all of this sex, right? It's like,
Yeah.
it's, and don't get me wrong, right? With freedom, there's that may result in that expression.
Yep.
But in general, for me, this piece on the fact that I was able to get out of my head, put away all conventions,
Mhm.
not worry about what was being imposed on me as far as like expectations, but
Mhm.
really get to what did I want to do? What
Mm.
did I want to experience? How
Mhm.
did I see myself? And that allowed me to walk around that resort with no clothes on, right? And
Yeah.
I remember feeling so like, yes, empowered, but the liberation and the joy that I felt in being that free
Right.
was something that I was like, yo, I need more of this.
Mhm.
And it doesn't mean, right? Obviously, I'm in a place where I'm always taking my clothes off, but
Yeah.
it represented so more about how do I find spaces and places that celebrate my liberation and my freedom. Those are the spaces, places, and people that I will gravitate towards.
Yeah.
Where do I go that I feel supported in this?
Mhm.
And that is that deliberate decision, intentional decision, right? Part of that healing journey too is that we have to gravitate towards those spaces that celebrate our liberation, that celebrate our healing, that embrace all of who we are. That's part of that. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Mhm. Well, I'm cheering you both on that on where that may go, right?
yeah, yeah,
Because yeah, I mean, I think that oh man, I mean, there's just some archaic message in my opinion. Again, listeners, we've got a unique group of listeners, but for me, like I do feel that much of what is taught is quite archaic and is missing I mean, when you're like what you're sharing, I mean, the freedom, yeah, the expectations that we're all walking around, the shame, that we have from back in the day, right? We've got all of these different stories at different levels that we're all dealing with, right? So figuring out how to show up for each other, right? And be authentic, right? I mean, for some folks, my brother and I, we consume life differently, and that's beautiful, right? I don't need him to like sign up for tantric workshops with me, like that can be something that I choose as a part of my healing and my expansion. And if that's not a part of his journey, that's cool, right? That
yeah,
so I also want to acknowledge that part of me.
yeah. That's good.
Yeah. Um. Okay. Couple closing questions, if that. Yeah.
Okay.
I know we're getting close to our time. Just so thankful, just where we've navigated and what you've shared. Yeah, I'm really excited I'm excited to listen back through it and edit it and grab clips and everything, so thanks for being here again, Monroe. Really appreciate you.
Man, it is definitely my pleasure, man.
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed thus far this experience. And like I said, going in, it was like, it's not just about you getting to know more about me, but through this exchange, man, I've gotten to know more about you and your healing journey, and that's my goal. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what is, what's that exchange? How do, again, where's that connection? Where's that connection?
Yeah, totally, totally. So what yeah, I would love to shift in would be, let's do this. Yeah, I don't want to rush into into the final question yet, because I'm like freaking loving all you're sharing. Um, but maybe a transition point. Okay. So transition point would just be, you offer life coaching. Yeah. Tell us a bit more. So you're doing, yeah. So the tantric piece, I just love to hear. Yeah. For our listeners, people who are like, ooh, I want to listen to more. I want to hear what's going on. That's where I wanted to go. This is where I wanted to go. So if you don't mind sharing a little bit about, I know you said you're getting ready to take an exam here in April soon. Are you still taking coaching, clients?
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah,
Yeah.
curious to know
Yeah,
what.
so, so here's the thing. I am a huge advocate and proponent of collaboration. So again, in my own just kind of personal life journey, and then also where the Naked Truth experience has taken me with making connections with like these wonderful practitioners and healers and experts and thought leaders, I'm able to find where's the synergy and where can we collaborate, right? For the purpose of providing these healing spaces. And so that's when we talk about the sacred sexuality for men,
Mhm.
Crystal and I play some very distinct, roles. Like, she is steeped heavily in the tantric yogi practices that for the last 10 years she has studied and mastered, and the way in which she is able to make these connections with the mind, body, and spirit in that way, and talk about sexuality is something that I am just mesmerized by.
Mhm.
And so we work very well together as I take our participants through this exploratory journey, right? This explorative journey where we ask those questions. I facilitate, these opportunities for us to really go deep, for us to do that interrogation, for us to do the self-confrontation, for us to really think about the narratives that have been developed over time that no longer serve us. Maybe they never served us, right? Maybe they did serve us at one time because it was our, defense mechanism, our protective coding, right? But now those things are outdated and they need to be updated because they are keeping us stuck in a rigid state of being, right? So those are the things when we talk about the self-confrontation, then moving towards these exploring these narratives. And from there, when we're rewriting these narratives and updating these narratives, then we are able to really start to step into the fullness of our authenticity. Like, who am I really when I have taken out these things that do not serve me, when I have really, really, really looked at and owned all of me, all of my experiences, the good, bad, the ugly, all the things that I was ashamed about, all the things I couldn't forgive myself for. Now that I have looked at those, I've owned those things, I've confronted those things, I've changed the narrative, how do I show up in this world? And so that description is basically my coaching technique, right? So
Yeah.
I take my clients through this journey. And again, it is, people can have a whole bunch of different goals, because that's the distinction, really kind of like an elementary distinction between life coaching and therapy. And as a life coach, I'm really kind of focused on the immediate, like, what is a goal? How can we get you from A to B? And how can we develop, strategies to overcome any, obstacles that may be blocking you and all those kind of things. And with therapy, we're really kind of reaching back and we're saying, what has been going on, from that formative years that has carried on into this place. So we really kind of start diving and delving deep into some of those formative aspects of our existence and personality, and how those things influence who we are today and how we show up. Well, it definitely is something that now, with taking this licensing exam in April, that I will be able to merge and add to my practice. So I will continue to do the life coaching,
Yep.
and then I will also be licensed to do therapy. And it is something that I'm extremely excited about, to be able to hold both of those spaces for individuals, because again, it's going to, what do you need? What do you need? Right? When I do a consultation with a life coaching client, there are times when I determine through our conversation, you know what, right now, probably the best thing for you to be would maybe to engage in some therapy work. And then we can come back and really kind of tackle this. But I think what I'm hearing, what I'm assessing, right? So I'm just glad that I'll be able to offer both.
Yeah.
And,
Totally. Okay, so super exciting all that you're offering right now. I mean, as I hear you go through it, I'm like, okay, I need the coaching. I need when you get the counseling thing squared away, let's get, you know what I mean? You're doing such huge, important work, not only on yourself. I think this is what I'm loving about you, is just your vulnerability and authenticity of just the process you've been in, you know? And I think that, that's just you're going to make such a difference in so many people's lives, because you do such a great job of coming vulnerable and coming from your heart, and also creating a space where people feel safe and can heal along, and it could be courageous. So anyway, I'm really excited to, any other offerings you wanted to add on? I know we got a little cut off there.
No, I did. I just want to say to that, I feel extremely grateful that this is literally where my life journey has taken me. 2020, for so many people, including myself, there were a lot of devastating moments in 2020, yet there were a lot of moments of rebirth. And there were a lot of moments of a lot of epiphanies. There was a lot of connections made. I found the love of my life in 2020. Like, I'm just like, there was, it was just all of these things that came out of that. But I'm honestly very proud to be sitting in a space where I'm having healing conversations about healing, vulnerable conversations, and the fact that, like, this is my job, this is my life's work, this is mine, and I've been working since I was 16 years old, and I'm 40 now. So there's been lots of career trajectories. But this is something that I'm proud of at the same time, to be sitting in this space and place to be able to do this work. So yes, the Essential Coaching Group, we offer the life coaching services, and then I will be one of the therapists with by Shay Williams, who's another amazing psychotherapist out of the Maryland area. And so I will be doing therapy under his practice, Hearts and Mind. So, yeah.
Awesome. So excited to continue to follow you, and just thankful to know you. Really excited to see all that grow, and the lives you're going to touch, and the people that are going to, take courageous steps with you, supporting them and encouraging them on the way. So, closing question that I would love to hear your thoughts. Room full of 20,000, and they came and they've been hearing, you've been rocking this amazing speech, and they're on the edge of their seat, and they're awaiting, like, all right, like their call to action. So, imagining like 20,000, like sitting there, like, all right, Monroe, loving it. They're taking notes. They're like soaking it in. And you're going to just say, hey, as we leave here are 2 or 3 things that I want you to take into consideration, or ponder, or sit with. Anyway.
Yeah. Again, don't mean to sound elementary, but it's key to what is happening in my life, and I'm seeing is happening in the lives of others. Take some time to be with yourself. Be intentional with prioritizing, reprioritizing, slowing down, taking a pause with whatever you need to do to just spend some time getting to know you better, deeper, right? More authentically, and then being responsive to what you find out. It is something that I'm practicing now. These last 2 days, my body has told me, I need you to rest. You are physically tired. You're on a mission, you're on a goal, and I appreciate you putting in the work. Mm-hmm. But there is something that I need from you right now in this moment. So I need you to rest, right? And that is something I would usually ignore for the sake of doing the work, for the sake of being worthy, right? In those ways. So I would tell people, listen to you. And the only way you're going to find out what you are saying is by spending some time with you. And again, doesn't mean it has to look like what everybody else is doing. Mm-hmm. So if you're like me and 10 minutes, 15 minutes of being silent and meditating is a challenge because your mind is all over the place, then you find a way in which you can connect with you. If that's taking a walk by yourself in nature, in a park, around the corner, if that's sitting outside in an open space that's maybe connected to your home, if it is being quiet, drinking a cup of coffee or tea, talking to a friend maybe that inspires you to think about something, taking a drive alone, spend some time getting to know who you are. That's what I would say.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Monroe, thank you so much.
Let me say, listen, man, I thank you, Aaron. This has definitely been a complete pleasure for me to have spent this time with you. I really feel like, and thank you for your vulnerability. Like, I love it when, people talk to me about mine, but I'm like, for you to return that and make me feel comfortable in your space, in your platform, to really want to open up, because you did the same. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here, and really excited to, just continue to, hey, I'm going to put it on my bucket list, a little continued co-creation here in the coming years, because I love what you're doing and what you're about. So keep rocking. And those of you who joined Our Healing Voices, whether on YouTube or via podcast, thank you. Thanks for coming by. Thanks for dropping in with us. Just know we're cheering you on. We're cheering you on, and you're not alone. And if you feel alone, please reach out. If not to me or to Monroe, reach out to someone who who is there, but you may not be feeling them there. But you might have to push through and just ask for that help. Anyway, so again, episode 21, Monroe Howard, thank you so much for being here. Blessings to everyone, and have a beautiful rest of the day.